What if I told you that there's a mushroom that grows on bugs? In fact, it doesn't just grow on bugs, it literally takes over their brain and eats their insides until it eventually fruits through their head. Luckily, humans don't have to worry about this fact because for us, this mushroom is a medicinal mushroom that's used for energy, for endurance, for immunity, and lots of other functional benefits. Of course, I'm talking about cordyceps mushroom, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about cordyceps as a medicinal mushroom, talking about how it grows, how it works, what compounds are actually inside of it, and what it might be able to do for you. Cordyceps is actually a genus of mushrooms that contains over 700 different known species. Now, cordyceps in general are parasitic. Some are parasitic to other fungi, while most are actually endoparasitic, which means basically that they grow on bugs. And you may have seen videos or photos of this where mushrooms are kind of growing out of the head and the body of other insects, and although this is super weird, it's actually really cool. Now, when it comes to medicinal cordyceps, there are two species that are relevant, and that is Cordyceps sinensis and Cordyceps militaris. Cordyceps sinensis is kind of the OG of medicinal cordyceps. It has a long history of use, and it grows by infecting the larvae of the ghost moth. The spores of the Cordyceps sinensis mushroom kind of take over the body of this insect, using its insides as fuel. When the caterpillar dies, the mushroom fruits through its head, which is why it sometimes gets the name caterpillar fungus. It's also known sometimes as the winter worm. And if you look at this mushroom, you can see the caterpillar part and then the relatively small mushroom part on top of it. Because of its complicated life cycle, Cordyceps sinensis cannot be commercially cultivated, and it needs to be wild harvested where grows in high elevations in the Himalaya. Cordyceps sinensis is rare, it is over harvested, and because of those two things, it is ridiculously expensive. It's definitely worth its weight in gold. In fact, it's even more expensive than that. Cordyceps sinensis can get up to 20,000 or even 25,000 US dollars per kilogram. This insanely high price makes it completely infeasible to be used as a medicinal mushroom or as a mushroom supplement. Which also means that it's likely if you do have a Cordyceps sinensis supplement and you didn't pay an arm and a leg for it, well, there's a good chance that the product that you're using doesn't really contain Cordyceps sinensis, or you're not really being told the whole story. The other important medicinal cordyceps is Cordyceps militaris, and I actually have some here, and as you can see, they do look pretty cool. Now, these ones are dried, so maybe they don't look too interesting, but when they're fresh, they look super neat. They're kind of wider and bright orange or yellow, and they really do look like Cheetos. Now, Cordyceps militaris is also endoparasitic, which means it grows on bugs, but it doesn't have to grow on bugs, which means it can be cultivated, and that makes it an excellent candidate to be used as a medicinal mushroom, especially since it has a very similar profile as other cordyceps that are revered for their medicinal benefits, and it can be cultivated, so grown commercially without costing $20,000 per kilogram. It is grown on a bed of rice and soy, but that doesn't mean it's mycelium on grain. For example, here is a commercial cordyceps farm, and as you can see, the fruiting bodies are grown, and the fruiting bodies are what are harvested. Now, cordyceps grows slowly in cool conditions with blue light to increase the concentration of beneficial compounds that are found inside the mushroom. If you do have a cordyceps supplement that is made from fruiting bodies, it is almost certainly Cordyceps militaris, and that is actually a good thing. Now, if we're talking about cordyceps from a medicinal perspective, we have to at least mention CS4, otherwise known as Cordyceps sinensis 4. Now, this is a strain of cordyceps that is grown in liquid fermentation. So basically imagine a bunch of cordyceps mycelium kind of floating around in a nutritious broth. CS4 is an anamorph, or kind of a vegetative form of Cordyceps sinensis, meaning that it doesn't produce a fruiting body. There's even some debate as to whether or not most commercially available CS4 is even Cordyceps at all, or if it's just some other species that's masquerading as Cordyceps. Still, there is some genetic similarity between CS4 and Cordyceps sinensis, and there are definitely some benefits from CS4 that are similar. There are a lot of compounds in cordyceps, but the two that are most important are the polysaccharides and the nucleoside analogs. Now, polysaccharides in cordyceps, or beta-glucans, are found in a relatively high concentration. Now, this is similar to other medicinal mushrooms, but it's why cordyceps is known as such a powerful natural immune booster. The nucleoside analogs are what really make this mushroom special because they are a unique compound in cordyceps. But why is this important? Well, true nucleosides are in DNA and RNA. The analogs in cordyceps have a different structure, but are similar enough that they can actually be used in a lot of the body's natural processes. The most notable nucleoside in cordyceps is something called cordycepin, the highest concentrations of which are found in Cordyceps militaris. Now, you might have heard of cordycepin before. It is the compound that is responsible for a lot of the benefits of cordyceps, and it is unique to this mushroom. The benefits of cordyceps are pretty broad and wide-reaching, and if you want to take a deep dive into all the benefits and check out some of the links to the research we used to put this video together, feel free to check out our full cordyceps guide, the link to which is in the description below, but we'll go over some of the more common benefits in this video. The most commonly recognized benefit of cordyceps is increased energy and endurance. In fact, it's sometimes referred to as the athlete's mushroom or the energy mushroom. There was, of course, the famous case of the 1993 women's Olympic running team that smashed a bunch of records, and eventually their coach came out and said that their secret sauce was cordyceps mushroom. Now, although there is some debate as to whether or not this is actually a true story, there are a lot of studies done which show that cordyceps mushroom can increase endurance. It may also increase oxygen capacity, or the efficiency in which we're able to transfer oxygen from our lungs to the rest of the cells in our body, which could help reduce muscle fatigue and help with overall energy and endurance. There was one study done on mice that were treated with Cordyceps militaris, and it showed that they were able to swim longer before fatiguing. Glycogen concentrations in their liver were also increased, which showed that they might have had more fuel, which means they would have had more endurance. Of course, there has also been some human studies done on this which were pretty interesting as well. A study of 20 healthy people aged 50 to 75 showed taking cordyceps supplement 3 times a day for 12 weeks increased the amount of time it took for lactic acid to build up in the muscles and allowed participants to exert themselves more before getting out of breath. Another study showed supplementing with cordyceps appears to improve energy output in sedentary and/or elderly people, but not necessarily in high-performing endurance athletes, which could mean that the mushroom has more potential for people who haven't yet achieved peak performance. Basically, the more out of shape you are, the more likely you are to benefit from cordyceps mushroom. Now, another reason why cordyceps mushroom might be associated with better athletic performance or energy is because of its potential to increase adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Now, a lot of people know from Bio 101 that ATP is kind of the energy currency of the body and is produced in something called the Krebs cycle. Because this is a complex process, it's no surprise that the mechanism in which ATP is actually increased is still not well understood. But studies suggest it is done by increasing enzyme levels during ATP production. Somewhat related to energy and endurance is the potential benefits that cordyceps might have on lung health. Practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine believe that cordyceps could help clear excess phlegm production and improve lung function. Because of this, this mushroom has traditionally been used to address respiratory issues. Studies on lung inflammation, lung scarring, and lung injury offer some support to this historical application. In a mouse model of acute lung injury, which involves an acute inflammatory response, cordycepin appeared to prevent or block inflammation and reduce oxidative stress. There have also been studies done on cordyceps and asthma. A human trial investigated this potential by splitting 120 people into 2 groups. One group received cordyceps for 3 months along with their regular asthma treatments as needed. The other group just used their regular treatments. At the end of the study, this group that took the cordyceps reported better quality of life and their lung function had improved. It may seem counterintuitive, but the mushroom, best known for energy and endurance, might also have a calming effect. That's because cordyceps is a known adaptogen, meaning it can help support the body's natural response to stress. Although many other medicinal mushrooms share this property, cordyceps appears to work specifically by affecting nitric oxide production. Because nitric oxide increases in stressful situations, regulating this could definitely have a calming effect or help the body respond to these stresses. Like all other medicinal mushrooms, cordyceps also contains a high concentration of fungal beta-glucans, and because of this, it's useful for supporting the immune system. What's interesting about cordyceps is that it is known as a bidirectional modulator, meaning that it can either support the immune system or maybe suppress the immune system, depending on what the body needs the most. Cordyceps might also be considered a natural antiviral because of the compound cordycepin. As mentioned earlier, cordycepin is a nucleoside analog, and it might be able to interfere with viral replication. This property, along with the power of beta-glucans, make cordyceps a perfect candidate for the ultimate immune defense. There's also some research that shows cordyceps might be able to help relax blood vessels and thus increase blood flow. Poor blood flow is one of the many known reasons for potentially low libido, so it makes sense that cordyceps mushroom might be able to help for this purpose. Further, there's studies that have been done on mice that might show a link to testosterone production, which also supports the thesis of cordyceps mushroom as a libido enhancer. So you might be wondering, how do you actually use cordyceps mushroom? Is it something that you can just fry up and eat, or is it something you can snack on? And interestingly enough, you can get freeze-dried fruiting bodies of Cordyceps militaris that are actually pretty tasty, and you probably could eat them as a snack. But without a doubt, the best way to get the benefits of cordyceps is to use a properly prepared mushroom supplement. And unless you're richy rich and able to spend $20,000 per kilogram on some cordyceps, probably the best way to do it is to use something that's made from fruiting bodies of Cordyceps militaris. Now, you can find Cordyceps militaris pretty easily in powder or supplement form. Sometimes you can get tinctures, and you can even sometimes find it in functional foods or other functional drinks. If you do find Cordyceps sinensis and it's not costing you an arm and a leg, it's most likely going to be something called mycelium on grain, meaning it's going to have a high concentration of grain and a low concentration of beneficial compounds. So be sure to check the label and make sure it kind of lists the levels of active compounds like beta-glucan and cordycepin. As far as when to take cordyceps mushroom, you can basically take it any time of day, but some people do find it has an acute energizing effect. So some people like to take it in the morning or use it in their pre-workout, but for some other people, it doesn't really make a difference and they can take it at night where the beneficial effects take place over longer periods of time. So it likely shouldn't matter too much when you take cordyceps, but if it does have an energizing effect for you, obviously you don't want to take it before you go to sleep. As for what level of dose, it really depends on what you're trying to do with cordyceps and what type of cordyceps you're using. In general, for dual extracted cordyceps mushroom fruiting bodies, a dose is typical around 1 to 2 grams. But if you're trying to treat a specific condition, obviously you want to follow the advice of your doctor or natural healthcare provider. Other than that, just usually following the instructions on the label or on the product is the best way to go. Now, cordyceps that has been extracted does have a pretty strong flavor. Some people don't seem to mind, whereas some people find it pretty overwhelming. So if you think it's too strong of a flavor, capsules are likely a better option, but if you don't mind the strong taste, then you could easily go with an extracted powder. Personally, I like to just mix it up in water. The taste is really strong, but it makes me feel like I'm getting the full benefits. Not so bad. I hope you found this useful. If you want to dive deeper, please check the link in the description. That will take you to the full guide. It's got way more information that I could cram into this video, plus all the links we used for the research to put this video together. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.